There we go. The red button is activated. We are live. Hey everyone, James Gardner here. On the other side of me is the one and only Barbara Shepard. I'm just going to, hello, Barbara.
Hello.
Hello. I am just going to do a systems check here. I got to just sync up something and we're going to rock and roll. Barbara, how are you today?
Absolutely wonderful. It didn't start off as well, but it kept going because I had a positive attitude about today is going to rock because I knew I had this and I get to hang out with you.
Aw.
I mean, it just automatically brightens my day when I think of you and being able to help you out doing this just makes me feel good.
Oh, thanks. Okay, we're ready to rock. Barbara Shepard, everyone, is an amazing friend, colleague, associate, coach, fellow conscious warrior. And make sure you check her out on social. She's got some warrior wisdoms that she drops and some unique perspectives from a mom, from a wife, from a lover of books, which we're going to talk about. Okay, so everybody tuning in, wherever this finds you, this is our little Q&A with author James and some people that have either read parts of the book or know my story or know some of the stories. Follow me on social, and maybe just like you, or have seen snippets and things that they're wondering, what is this all about? What is this book about? And who the F is James Gardner, and what's going on? So, Barbara Shepard, this is your chance to take the mic and ask away any questions that you may have.
Oh my gosh, let me tell you, knowing some of your story, there's 2 points that I really got to know about because I love The Rock. So that story is going to be interesting. Now, I've heard bits and parts of that, but he is like the person that I love to listen to or just kind of watch because he does go after it. But also, we're going to have to touch on that murder mystery that you were
Mm,
supposedly in the middle of because the
mm.
criminal justice part of my brain is going, I need to know these details and how did you get away with it? No.
How did I get away with it? Yeah. That's why I exiled me to Canada. So, uh, well, you want to start with that? You want to start with a little crime investigation?
Yes, let's, because I think criminal justice or just any kind of a mystery is something where we
Mm,
have to deep dive and uncover stuff. And it's not always what it appears to be.
mm, mm. Dun dun dun.
Hmm.
It's funny. Well, Barbara, at the time I was living in New York City, and I had just got a new bartending job. I was working on the Upper East Side, a very posh hotel called the Stanhope Hotel, famous back in the golden era, famous for Charlie Parker passing away upstairs, famous jazz musician. And it's got the doorman, and it's right across from Central Park. It's old school. It's beautiful. So I went from slinging drinks at an amazing pub where I had cut off sleeve T-shirts and rock music, and it was awesome, to wearing a vest and a tie, and fetching seriously water for people's dogs, and filling up bowls in the bar, in the lounge, for the people that would stay there, or some people lived in the hotel for their owners. So it was very posh. It was my first journey into that kind of social elite, if you will. And in walked a woman one day. Her name was Jenna Rosa Ammon, and she was staying at the hotel for a while her brownstone was being renovated. Nice woman, and we got to know her. And then, of course, her electrician would come in every day after work and sit, and they would talk shop. And so the electrician, by the name of Danny Pelosi, was this Long Island guy. Hey, forget about it. Fucking New York City, Golden Gloves, badass, rap sheet as long as whatever. And he the two of them started to be together all the time. And so there was a heated divorce going on at this point too. So Jenna Rosa was in a divorce with her husband, Ted, who was an investment broker, banker worth in excess of $90 million, $85 million, something like this. And heated divorce. And so I became friends with them. And my girlfriend at the time and I started to hang out with the two of them. And we became like this 4-person couple. We went out for dinner. We went to Jenna Rosa's Hampton estate many times. And, you know, Hamptons, for those of you that don't know, is the posh of Long Island where all the social elite go and all the money is there, right on the ocean. And we, you know, I was like, here's Jim living this lifestyle. I'm like, 2 months ago, I was slinging drinks with, you know, cut off t-shirts, banging my head and watching wrestling on the big screen with a bar full of rowdies. Right. And so it was kind of it was interesting dynamic. And so the thing was, though, is there was a friendship built. I loved Danny. Like I fell in love with this guy. Like he was charming, he was funny, he took an interest in me, he was helping me with my acting career at the time. So much so that I left working at the Stanhope to go work for Danny and Jenna Rosa. And so all of a sudden I found myself showing up at the construction site of her brownstone, getting paid good money for fucking the dog, sweeping floors, you know, because I wanted to be in that lifestyle. I was like, okay. So, you know, that went on for a while. And like I said, we became really close. And then there was a moment or a day where we walked into the job site and Danny comes in and he's all distraught. He's like, all right, site's closed. Everybody go home. And we know he's kind of feisty sometimes. We're like, oh, what the hell's going on? Right. And, you know, he's like, well, Ted, the husband, had just been found murdered. We're like, what? And so it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out who would be prime suspect number one, right? So to break that down, what had happened was Ted was murdered in that Hampton home, the home that I was in a month prior, give or take, and beaten to death and so forth. And so because of the divorce case and because of Ted's background, it took over the news. And it so much so because there was a lot of money laundering and missing, and then there was offshore accounts, and there was all these talk of enemies and people that may have done him wrong because he wasn't always playing by the book, I guess. Who knows? So then, you know, I started to be like, well, I was like, Danny didn't do it. He's a patsy. He's a patsy, right? Total patsy. Cops are following him. I'm starting to get paranoid now because I'm in the inner circle, right? Like I know and knew a lot of stuff just because I was one of Danny's cronies, except I wasn't the crony. I was the guy from Little Rhode Island stuck in this world, right? But I, you know, honestly, I was in the mob is really what it came down to. That's what it felt like, right? And so I remember a couple times people following me, detectives and so forth. And so, you know, there's one part in the book. I talked about this last week with Cindy, who you know, and you know, there was a part where I actually thought I was going to get whacked. And so much so that when I was in a boat and I won't get into too many details. I want to leave some suspense, but I was not forced into a boat, but I was gently ushered into a boat, up into the hold, that I actually took a moment and I looked down at my feet to see if I was standing on plastic tarp like it was in the movies. God's honest truth. Uh, and I know Danny and his uncle. They were testing me to see if I had spoken and I had talked to the police or the investigators at all, and which I hadn't. I was quite loyal to Danny, and honestly, the loyalty stemmed from my naiveness, I guess. I really thought. The one thing though is there was one little thing that came out in the news about the crime scene that I saw, that I had witnessed firsthand on the job site, and so that put me over the edge. I was like, I'm out, I'm out. And then I got I guess subpoenaed. It wasn't an official courthouse thing, but I had to go before a group of people and swear an oath, and I had a freaking DA stand up and give me the gears, about events of certain nights. And do I remember this? And do I remember seeing that? Um, and so I walked out of that. I walked out of that room, and I was thinking, what the fuck am I doing? Like this, my ego completely cashed this check. I was blinded by all this shit because I wanted to be somebody, because I wanted to play the highfalutin lifestyle, you know? And so, it from then on, of course, I distanced myself. Danny, they brought charges against Danny, and then it just turned into honestly, a gong show, Barbara. Like, it was tragic. There was, they had two adopted kids, meaning Jenna Rosa and Ted. They had two adopted kids that were in the middle of this, and they found, like, Ted was murdered, I think two or 3 days before the divorce was finalized. So all of that $90 million, whatever it was, went straight to Jenna Rosa. Like, all these signs, you're like, fuck, like this is next level shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sad. Jenna Rosa, they started to pit Jenna Rosa against Danny too, the prosecutors, and they were in love. I do believe that they were in love. I do. At some point, they were there for each other, and she ended up getting breast cancer, passed away through all this, and then Danny was found guilty of murder, and so that chapter closed on my life in a moment where I felt, and the book talks about this, the full circle moments that we all get in life, and we all have if we choose to see them. Danny went to Attica prison, which is a famous prison in New York, and I went to see him. I had to close the loop just one more time, and I remember having a conversation through the plexiglass with Danny in his orange jumpsuit, getting ready for his appeal, and said goodbye, and I walked away, and I remember thinking, do I turn around and just look one more time? And I didn't. I just kept walking, and that was it, and I still, even though it's such a tragic thing that I was, at the epicenter of, if you will, I choose to remember the smiles and the joy that I had, because I did have some amazing moments with the two of them people, and they enriched my life to a degree, regardless of how it played out. Yeah,
Definitely. I mean, and we never fully truly know anyone except ourselves. So
true.
but it is interesting, and it's how we look at things that brings our perception and our experiences, what one person sees as a crisis, somebody else just walks right through.
Mm.
So it's really interesting, but looking at different perspectives, and I think that's the joy of anytime we read an author, because I've read a lot of books, and you get, even if it's a fiction piece, whether it's nonfiction, whatever it is, you get into the psyche of an author. And sometimes you jive with it, and sometimes you're like, whoa, this is totally like they're like way out there. But sometimes they'll have just a piece of nugget that, of wisdom that you're like, okay, I got it. So you never know where wisdom is going to come from, but looking at different perspectives allows us to grow in ways we never thought.
Mm.
So you being within that inner circle, if you will, of all of that going on, you get to see the seamy side of stuff, but you also got to see the glitz and the glamour and the joy and the happiness that can come out of both sides.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how I choose to remember it. I mean, it's a great story. It's unique. The case itself went on to have a dedicated Law and Order episode. Was a made for TV movies twice, two different TV movies, and has its own book. I mean, it was a big thing, and it's kind of mind boggling to think, how the hell did I end up as Danny's wingman? And that's truly what it was, day in and day out for a while. It was crazy. It was crazy.
We never know. They say people come into, our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. So we never know where we're gonna find our next friend or next colleague or next mentor or anything that comes along, and we have to be open to it as well. So you were open to the experience, just the fact that, like you said, you went from slinging at basically a metal bar compared to, the posh upbringing, of everywhere, the next place, you're just like, it's like a duality. We have that all through life.
Yeah.
But when we're able to look past both of those labels, like one is this or one is that, we begin to, just enjoy life for what it is, not the duality, yin and yang, or flip side of a coin. They just happen to mesh very well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, I mean, you can, just to wrap up that story, I mean, we can label someone like Danny, we can label him evil. And honestly, to this day, Barbara, I still wonder. I'm like, did he do it? Because he's still fighting appeal. Like, he's still on that bandwagon.
Mhm.
I'm like, because it was known that Mr. Ammon had a lot of enemies. That was known. However, part of me is like, all that said, even though he might be labeled as an evil person by many, he contributed to my career, to my life. Like, he always had my back in my dream to be an actor. And I, right behind this monitor, I have a poster of a movie that I did, full-length feature film that I produced and directed. And he was a big part of that. He put money into it and bought me some equipment so I could live the dream. And because of that film, that opened up doorways and led to other acting gigs too. So, everything, good, bad, and ugly, plays a part in this game of life. Right?
It does, because in all actuality, we every person has good, bad, and everything else in between. It's just how we decide to express it, choose to use it, if you will. As they say, the tale of the two wolves. Which one do you feed?
Mm-hmm.
That's been a big one for me. It's like, are you feeding the good one, or are you feeding the evil one, or are you feeding both of them? That can happen too sometimes, and you're doing this, and that causes bad things to happen. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, and then of course you got into film or acting because obviously you hung around with a lot of celebrities. So that got in, The Rock, and I see that you're a total Trekkie like I am. You know far more about it than I am because I enjoy it, but I'm not so immersed into it. But I also am a Star Wars fan too, as well. So I do both. So I don't dive into one or the other because I do enjoy them both. But you gotta tell me, how does all the celebrities add in? Because you've met quite a few. There's quite a few on your list of people and that
Yeah.
are going to be in the book.
Well, you're in that world um, as an actor, and it's a networking world, and it's also, let's be honest. I mean, some of it wasn't all glitz and glam. Some of it was me slinging drinks at different. After the Stanhope, when I went back to the hospitality world of the next series of jobs that I had were all celebrity driven lounges. So I was center stage for that. So I'd have people coming up and having conversations with Denzel Washington and Colin Farrell and Gabriel Byrne and Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin, and like, because it was just what you do. And I think I'm not alone. I mean, a lot of people have celebrity experiences, people, whether they're out or it's just few and far between. However, the book though ties into Jimmy, little Jimmy, if you will, had an ability to kind of fit in. And so little Jimmy had an ability um, to understand different facets, and especially in high school, Jimmy was friends with everyone. The heavy metal dudes, the nerds, the tweakers, the IT guys, the whatever, the Skid Row dudes. Like, I could relate. Jimmy had this ability to relate to something. And I talk about that because as I got older, I truly feel that, and it's no surprise, as you know, the work I do now is I hold space, and that's all I did back then. And sometimes celebrities just want to be heard and they want to have a conversation. They don't want to be oogled and ogled over. They want to have a conversation, and so um, I was fortunate enough to do that, and I was fortunate enough to say, "Hey, I had this perception of we put our clothes on the same way. So let's have a conversation. What's going on, Sandra Bullock?" And I talk about this in the book. One of the happiest moments that I have is a 30-minute conversation with Sandra Bullock over a bottle of Heineken when there's just two of us in a bar. It was an afternoon, Saturday afternoon, downtown at 60 Thompson Street. And it was amazing. And then it was over, you know? It was a beautiful moment. And so there's a lot of those moments in there. And then of course there's a few choice encounters, Barbara, that played into storylines in the book, whether again full circle moments, whether it's having a very intense conversation with, like, Robin Williams, for example, who in the acting world people say I looked like a lot, and my younger Robin Williams. And so when I started to kind of in LA, when the dream was starting to die, and I was starting to be more unhappy than happy, I had a pivotal experience with Robin Williams, him and I, over some tequila shots together. And that plays a huge part in the book and a huge part in the ending of the book. So I've woven in some of those moments, and added meaning to them because they were meaningful to me. They weren't just some flippant conversation, Yeah. Anyone in particular you want to know about?
Well, let's just say The Rock is kind of my idol, if you will, because I mean, you think about his story and how Seven Buck production came about. He's got $7 in his pocket, he's got to decide what he's going to do, and he made it work. He made his life his own, and he did what he needed to do, and it was for his reasons, obviously, but the fact that, you could say that you've been in his iron paradise, hanging out with him, working out with him, or doing something like that.
Well, not exactly his iron paradise, but our gym together. Yes. I
There you
mean,
go. See, and
but
even that, I mean, stop and think about it. Anywhere we are becomes ours.
true.
Anywhere we hang out. They say, heart, home is where the heart is. It's not so much always a physical place because we take it with us.
Well, that's it.
And
Yeah.
so it really is one of those things that we can be anywhere. And like you said, those half an hour conversation with Sandra Bullock. Holy cow. That for some of us, that's like, who would have thought that? And then even just sitting back, when I think of celebrities, I've met quite a few because in high school did some stuff where we had bands come into the college and we got to meet those guys. I mean, I got to meet Firehouse and some bands that I wouldn't have been around before, but it was very interesting.
Reach for the sky.
Oh,
I love Firehouse.
it's one of those things that, but also the culture that would come in, the plays and the ballets and all of the other stuff too. We never know where we're going to get something great from, or the experience, because even though you were saying those were fleeting conversations and they would never happen again, you probably had profound conversation. And that's the thing, we all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, and we all want to be acknowledged. Yeah, it's great to be known,
And
celebrity or something like that, but we also want just to be seen as normal.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had I'm going to get back to The Rock in a sec, but I had when I did a day player on Law and Order Special Victims Unit. There I was sitting like, I don't know, 3 feet, my feet up on the table, having a conversation with Ice-T. We were talking about Mets, the Yankees, and music, and the youth. And I talk about this, at the end of the day, people want to have conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We're all bound by conversation, celebrity or not. It's like, people want to talk, people want to be heard, people want to be seen, just like you said. So totally. I'll just to give you a little insight on the Rock story. Good old Rock. So yeah, I mean, amazing soul. That was, and again, energetically, I was at the pub, the English pub we had our Monday Night Raw, and WCW. It was back in the heyday of wrestling, and the entire bar would watch this on the big screen. I got everybody hooked. Now, yes, I'm a wrestling fanatic, always have been, always will. I love it. Sports entertainment. Well, everyone loved The Rock. Rock was coming up, and we used to, love the way he would take the mic. And so right across from the bar was the gym that I go to, which was called Prescriptive Fitness, which changed to Gold's Gym, but back then it was Prescriptive Fitness. Here I am, bucking, working out, doing a set of chest, I remember this to the T. I got up, I always have my headphones, and people that know me at the gym, I'm always playing the Rock, the air guitar. I'm always just doing my own thing. I hit a perfectly note after my set, just whatever, and I stood up, and there's this massive man standing next to me. I'm like, fuck, it's The Rock. So, he just, what's your name? And I said, Jim, because I was not Jimmy, I was Jim. Of course, he calls me Jimmy. Okay, when The Rock calls you Jimmy, it is. Jimmy, we're gonna do some workout. I'm gonna hit some chest today. I need you to spot me. Boom. Okay. And so we worked out side by side. I was on this incline bench. He was on that flat bench, and he spotted me. I spotted him. And then he was in town. So he was in town. The WWE was opening a themed restaurant in Times Square. So he would come back in town periodically, also with his Saturday Night Live appearance, which he just started to do those. And before I know it, I'd be at the gym and I'd hear, Jimmy, turn around, and there's Dwayne, right? And it was pretty cool. But the thing about this is 2 things that I remember, and I talk about this in the book. Number one, this is just, if he ever hears this, he's probably going to roll his eyes. The man had the softest hands I have ever felt when he shook my hand. I was like, here's this big dude, iron guy slapping people for a living in a ring. And he shook my hand and it felt like a baby's bum. I was like, how is that possible? So I remember that conversation. I had that thought in my head. Number two, though, and this is the big one, was I was like, this guy has it. Just like you said, there's something about it. And what he had was he had confidence and swagger. And he also had humility and grace, even back then. And I recognized that. And I said to myself, well, I got two of those, but I ain't got those two. That was a big thing for me. It was like, because I had the swagger, I had the ego, I had the physique, I had the energy, I had the attention that I wanted when I was out and at a bar or on stage or whatever. I didn't have the humility and grace that was needed. And I think that is what catapulted him to stardom. He has the work ethic. He's, as you know, underneath that though, in my opinion, that's his secret sauce.
Yeah. I think we all have our secret sauce, if you will. Of course, I love the grace part because, that ties in with, my brand. And just really realizing too, that we have to have humility in all shapes and forms. And yeah, he does take it to a level. You really look at the people that make a natural difference, and they have all four of those in some formulation. I mean, you look at Will Smith, you look at Shaquille O'Neal, you look at a lot of some of the big who take what they've been given and give back. They close that circle, if you will. They just don't take, they also give. And that's the thing too. We also have to realize that we give in different ways. It's not just always money or time. It's creativity, it's art, it's any kind of form. And of course, your book is an art form. It is going to be a work of art. So it's going to be interesting to see what the cover looks like as well. And that's the beauty of the written word, as well as just pictures or anything. It's art. Heck, business is an art as much as it is a science. Life is just about art and science as well. I mean, we create beauty around us to make our environments feel better, to make us feel better, both mentally, physically, everywhere. And so by stepping into that and having that grace to go, oops, I made a misstep, to have that humility of, I'm not the biggest dog in the room, to have that perseverance to not stop. And swagger.
If only I had adopted more of that back, that was probably 22 years ago when I met him. Yeah, and I really have only stepped into that in the last 4 years. So,
but you learned it. You might not have used it, but you learned it.
True.
You had great mentors, if you will, that you were able to take those experiences then in the time that you needed it and grow. Yeah. I mean,
well, that's the theme of, there's the hero, the word hero is a thing throughout the book. And I've come to understand what a hero means to me and the different levels of heroes. And I look at those moments and like The Rock, for example, and others in the book, those are some pedestal moments that I was able to take a little bit from and add it into my toolbox, how I show up in the world,
Definitely. I mean, sometimes, fate brings us to the person that we need, or the place that we need, or the situation that we need. And I think that's, what is destiny. you know,
I know. That's
destiny, fate, karma, dharma, whatever you want to call it. How do we get there? It's an interesting question. Are we like we have free will, so we can take meandering paths to get there. So you meandered a little bit, got where
I
you
well,
needed to go, and now you're coming out, if you will, you're coming out of the valley, the other side, and you're coming out a bigger hero and a bigger leader than ever before.
thank you. Thank you. Barbara, you got time? We got time for one more question if you want something on top of your mind there on your some of your bucket list you want to ask Mr. James.
Well, I'm kind of curious. You've got this theme, this hero within that is really, so to speak, your brand. It's
Mhm.
how did you come up with that warrior consciousness, if you will? Because I know you and I both have very similar. I unleash the inner warrior within through the graceful warrior. Whereas how did you come up with yours? Was it just something that slowly kind of came, or was it out of this last 3-4 years of you
Mm. Well,
deep diving into the pit, if you will?
yeah, it's a great question. Well, it's definitely been an evolution. I've always been little Jimmy's always been, stuck or struck, excuse me, by the word hero and the associated greatness of a hero and what that means, whether it was Captain Kirk or Indiana Jones or Mercury 7 astronauts or whatever it is, and then athletes. That was a big one too. Those were heroes, right? And so um, there was a conquest and a warriorhood that was always associated for me with hero, and that's what heroes do. And we go to battle and we wage war and we swing the sword and we save the woman, the damsel in distress, and we fight for love because that's the greatest honor. And you know the evolution has really shown me that I think the most, not I think, I know for James, and I believe this for many people out there, that the most powerful hero is the hero within. And the hero within is the inner child. It's mightier than the sharpest blade. It's stronger than the biggest fortress one could scale. That pure power of love, innocence, wonder, grace, flow, possibility, that is a true hero.
Mm,
And living with no expectations is what, because children do that better than anybody.
they do.
Um, it's a powerful thing. And so that's really, I talk conscious warrior speak, and yeah, I'm a conscious male. And all my sword, if you will, is a plastic play sword wielded by little Jimmy. That's my weapon, right?
It is. Yeah. And children are, well, and that's a beauty too. Children can teach us far more than we think. I know it's been almost 11 years for me, but I lost one. And she was able to be an organ donor at the time.
Mm.
She was her own little hero. She was here for 24 hours. Big hero in my book. And
Hmm.
that's where a lot of my graceful warrior came about, because that was the guilt around, was it my fault? Because
Mm.
we think that. And it just happened to be the way life was supposed to be for her. And it really is kind of one of those, so grace-filled life, graceful life, it really is a wonderful thing that when we can unleash the imagination of a child, it's a wonderful thing. My daughter is an entrepreneur in her own right. She's not just turned 12. Children can do things that sometimes I think us adults have been bred out of or beat out of in some ways, because we just forget that we can be indomitable in anything we choose to do so, as long as we've got the perseverance, the humility, the swagger, the confidence, the everything that we want. And when we put that passion towards something and we don't let anything stop us like a child would, we can do and move mountains. So it's amazing. So I can't wait to see this whole circle of this book, from little Jimmy to Jim to James to what you're coming in the future, because you're still growing and you're still going.
Yeah.
There's more arenas to hit.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Barbara. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight too, and your conversation with some of these threads that we've talked about. And I love it. I love you. So thank you. And I just want to acknowledge the work you do, and also just acknowledge the amazing soul that you are. You've been a big supporter of mine. So I acknowledge that. I see you, and I appreciate that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And for anyone out there, Graceful Warrior Coaching, you're on social, you're all over LinkedIn, you're there. And please, my peeps, if you don't know Barbara, give her a like and follow. She does some really good content 2-3 times a week. She, just like myself, gets on and talks, has some top of mind conversations. So
definitely.
Thank you, Barbara. And to all of you out there, again, I hope wherever this finds you, little snippets, little takeaways that just kind of stoke that fire to help support the dream of a child. Pre-sales are happening from now until the end of March. So 6 weeks to take this phase 1 of this signature first edition. And you can be a founding hero in this movement to walk side by side with the inner child. So mad love to you all. Barbara, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Awesome.